ready to rock this, Mike?
I am so ready.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us for Elevate, our weekly webinars where we give you tips, tricks, nuggets in 20 minutes or less every Thursday at 9 a.m. Next week, we have some really great info for you. Google My Business. We have Scott Bancia. It's going to be sharing some tips and tricks how to kind of keep you to the top of Google. And today we are excited to have Mike Murlin of Real Geeks. He's going to share best practices for lead gen and CRM. Thank you so much, Mike. What do you have for us today?
Well, I'm so appreciative of the fact that you invited me on. And I got to say, like today, I love the format, 20 minutes. I think that's enough time to cover things at a high level. I would just encourage you, Amy, Jaylene, if you have questions coming out of this call, reach out to Cody. Not only when it comes to Real Geeks, but really with any form of technology tools and best practices. She is a fantastic resource. You probably don't need me to tell you that, but I've had the opportunity to see her, help agents improve how many transactions they're doing across a multitude of situations. And it's fun when I get to be a part of that. So if we come out of this broad, high level, kind of quick hit type of talk, and there's something there that needs more elaboration, reach out to Cody, and if she needs to, she'll tap me, and I'll be happy to help you as well. But I was giving some thought to what's the best way to, in 20 minutes, to give everyone a really good idea of what Real Geeks does and why people use it. And one thing that it was pretty front and center for me is when I think about my client base, I'm thinking back 3 or 4 years now. I've helped 900 people or so join the platform. When I look at those people as individuals, it's very, very clear they're all very, very different. They've, all built their business in a completely different way. Like I have clients who are big on nurturing their database, generating referrals, focusing on their SOI. I have clients who are really invested in lead gen and marketing and advertising, social media, search engine, boots on the ground, traditional advertising. I work with a ton of folks like that. I work with folks who, they've built a really successful business by farming some particular areas, building up a presence in specific neighborhoods or parts of town, and focusing on getting the lion's share of the listings that come out of those areas. And then I of course work with people who are more traditionally oriented, right? So think like open houses, prospecting, door knocking, cold calling, FSBOs, expireds. And they're not just doing completely different things, they're also at completely different stages of their business. Like I work with brand new agents, I work with people who've been really successful for 2 or 3 decades, and they're also in completely different markets. But all of them, even though their approach is completely different, they're at a completely different stage of their career, they're operating in a completely different market, they all end up doing more business when they get my system or a system like it in place. And, that's a pretty interesting idea. And, the question that immediately comes up for me there is, well, how is that possible? Like, how are all these different people doing completely different things in completely different areas, all achieving, higher amounts of transactions, higher amounts of conversion, more repeat deals, and more referrals, all by using the same tool? And the easiest way to kind of get our head around that is really just to think a little bit about, how the home shopping and, maybe even a little bit more upstream, how the information gathering process has really changed for a lot of folks. The modern real estate consumer, they have different expectations than the consumer, of a previous era in real estate. If we think back 10, 15, 20 years ago, if someone started to get a little bit curious and they wanted to take that first step, maybe they wanted to see a property or two, maybe they wanted to better understand what was happening in the market, maybe they wanted to get an idea of what their home might be worth if they decided to sell it. Well, back in the day, at some point, they would have had to pick up the phone and call an agent to get the answers to those questions. And that was great for the agent because they had this kind of built-in touch point. At some point, someone was going to have a question that they would need that agent to answer. And what that kind of gave the agent is this moment where they were made aware that someone is starting to think about real estate, and they actually got to have a conversation. And that conversation was an opportunity to find out what someone was looking for, and then use their insights and their expertise and experience to prove to this person that, I'm the agent you should work with. I'm the person you should trust. What changed is kind of the next question there. Well, what changed is sites like Zillow came to market, and a bunch of copycats popped up as well. Is my screen showing up on your end, Cody?
Yes, it is.
Perfect. So now there's been this kind of seismic shift. Now, when people have those initial curiosities, they're not as often picking up the phone anymore. They're going to Zillow, Redfin, Realtor, Trulia, take your pick. And that's great for the consumer. They love it. That's now their expectation, that there's a resource somewhere that they can go to get the key information that they want to have or feel they need, and that they don't have to talk to anybody to get it. And, the problem with that is it's, while the consumer likes it, it's not so great for the agent. That initial conversation I mentioned doesn't as often happen because the client is able to get what they need elsewhere. And, the agent is kind of robbed of that opportunity to win that business back. And they're also a lot more in the dark than they once were. So, wherever you get your leads from, if that's something that is going on in the business, which is, for most agents' business, there's some level of that happening. Typically there's some level of loss there, and not being able to have that conversation, and not having that awareness when someone's getting ready, to move, when they're getting a little bit more serious. But there's one other big change that, people don't as often think about. And it's so ubiquitous. Some of you may have seen this. SNL had a skit on this over the weekend. And what that change that I'm talking about is now that people can go and look at that information without talking to someone, they do it much earlier than they used to. Whereas someone in the past may have spent a few months kind of thinking about things before they get serious. Now people are logging on and looking at properties, looking at market information and home values, sometimes years in advance of when they're actually ready to close a deal. So where does that leave an agent? You can make a really good initial contact. And if someone's not ready to go right away, if they're one of those people that, hey, they're looking now, but they're 8, 9, 10, 12, 13, 14, 15, 2 years out, right? What in the world could you do to stay in front of those people, nurture that relationship, continue to provide value so that when they're ready to close, it's you they close with? And, that is really kind of what Real Geeks is about, is really kind of addressing those two main pieces. So on that first piece, when it comes to the first step, and when it comes to taking back control of what happens when someone needs information, what an agent needs to address that is their own website. And this is something where the really kind of the nature of the impact is in the details, because a lot of agents have websites and they don't get a single thing out of them. The difference is having a website that matches the consumer's expectations. So what you have in Real Geeks, kind of the first pillar of Real Geeks, is a website that actually does that. It's not just something where someone, they could search properties there that exist. What you have in a Real Geeks website is something that is at least comparable, if not superior, to Zillow, to Redfin, to Realtor.com. It's just as easy for your clients to use, or maybe even a little bit easier for them to use. And that's very, very important, because people are going to gravitate towards what they have the best experience in. So if you want to take back that control and reclaim those first steps and make sure those are happening between you and your clients, it's not really enough just to give them a website. You have to give them one that they actually like using. And if you do that, if you give them a resource that meets their expectations, now all of a sudden it gets a whole lot easier to make sure that when someone is, having those initial curiosities, they're starting to make their plans, you are involved. But even if you have a really solid website, that's not necessarily going to fix that nurture problem for you. You still are going to have these people, because this is kind of like the standard consumer behavior, that, they want to look for months or years before they want to get in a car and go see homes with you, right? So, what's needed there? Well, what's needed for most folks is a system that's going to help them nurture those people no matter how long it takes. Some form of lead follow-up system or a CRM that's going to keep you in front of those folks, provide value to them, and maintain that connection until they're actually ready to close. You know, it's one thing to manage our folks who are really, really hot and they're ready to, you know, close as soon as they find the right home. It's a little bit more challenging to nurture someone who wants to buy or sell, but they don't want to do it for 14 months. And you want to make sure that it's you they use, you know, over a year later when they're ready, right? So that's the second piece of what Real Geeks provides, a CRM, a lead follow-up system that does just that. It puts you in a position to stay in front of all of your clients, whether or not they want to buy or sell right now, and do so in a way that's actually valuable to them, keeps them engaged, and continues moving the ball forward, continues escalating their interest until they're at the point where they're ready to pull the trigger. So, you know, what we're looking at here, you know, is essentially, if we're talking about Zillow, we're talking about a really big real estate store that 200 million people go to shop in every month. We're talking about setting up a website for you. We're talking about building your, you know, a real estate store for yourself personally. You know, we're giving you a place to give your clients to shop and gather information. And we're delivering it at a level of quality and a level of ease of use that your clients will actually use it. And over time, they'll stay off Zillow. They'll stay off these other public sites. They'll choose to use yours. We pair that with a follow-up system that has drips, automations, and a million different bells and whistles to help you do anything that you want to do. If you want to farm an area, great. This has the tools you need to do it. If you want to run lead generation, you know, social media, search engine ads, local advertising, great. This has the tools to do it. If you're someone who focuses on your personal networks, your sphere of influence, your referral base, and you really want to lean into that more, this has all the tools to do that as well. And some of you may be like, you know, I've been in real estate for a while, and I've been successful without doing this. So why do I need to, right? And if that's the case, first of all, that's great. I would never contend that you can't be successful in real estate without doing this or doing something like it. But if you have a system in place that helps you more closely match the consumer's expectations, if you have a system in place that allows you to, through automation, meet them where they stand and maintain that connection over a longer period of time until they're eventually ready to go, if you don't have that now and you add it to your business, even if you're already successful, you're always going to do more than you were before. Just because wherever you're getting your leads from, they're out now all shopping in your store. If they're hearing from an agent, it's you they're hearing from the best. You have the best follow-up. And finally, if a system like this is working as it should, you're no longer in the dark. You have every day, you know, you're waking up to this live feed showing you all of the people in your database you may not have thought were looking for their next home. All of a sudden, you're seeing them look at properties, pull market reports, pull home values, maybe even save a property they really like as a favorite and request a showing. That's the power of this type of system. And for those of you out there who are thinking, well, Mike, I have a website CRM, then I would also say, that's great. That's fantastic. I'm glad you've taken that step. What I would encourage you to do is ask yourself 3 questions. 1, the website you have now, if you pull it up side by side with some of these big websites like Zillow or Redfin.com, and you use it as if you were a consumer, which site would you choose to shop on? Which is easier? Which works better on a mobile phone? Which has a paired mobile app that works really well also? The second question, with your CRM, you know, if you have some form of follow-up system in place, what I'd encourage you to ask yourself there is that follow-up system moving the ball forward? Is it just sending out a bunch of stuff, or is it sending out valuable content that people engage with, respond to, and it directly leads to appointments, which leads to deals? And then the third question I'd encourage those of you out there who have a website and CRM to kind of look at with your system, are all those tools working together to ensure that every single day I wake up with warm follow-up options? You know, is my website, is my CRM producing this dynamic where no matter what, when I log in every day, there's a few more people who've looked into buying, they've looked into selling, and and it makes it easy for me to call them, to text them, to chat through the website with them, to email them, to get in front of them on social media. And for those of you that have some form of system in place, if the answers to those questions are yes, my website is providing an experience that matches the consumer's expectations. It's the same level of quality. My CRM is sending out information that people find value in, they respond to, they engage with, and it leads to broader conversations that lead to transactions. And those tools are all working together so that I always know who in my database is showing signs that they're getting a little bit closer to moving. Then I tell you, you have a great system in place. You probably don't need to switch to Real Geeks, and your system is doing for you exactly what it should. But if you don't have something like that in place, whether you're someone who doesn't have any form of website and CRM at all, or maybe you're someone who has a website and CRM that kind of isn't doing those three critical things, that's where Real Geeks comes in really, really handy. Because whether you're someone who likes to spend a lot of money and time on advertising, whether you're someone who likes to farm certain areas, or someone who likes to prospect or do open houses, maybe you're an agent that focuses exclusively on the people you know. However you like to build your business, if you don't have something like this in place, this is probably going to be one of the lowest cost, highest returning investments that you could possibly make in your business. And I'm so excited for those of you in here to join Cody for her call next week. I know some of her resources on Google visibility, and they have some really, really great insights to help make sure that when people look for real estate and online, they find you. The question there is, if you do a really good job making sure that when people look for real estate online, they find you, what are they going to find? Are they going to find a real estate store that matches their expectations? Or are they going to find something that, they see, they move on from, they walk back out the door of that real estate store, and they mosey back on down the street to Zillow's store? Important stuff to think about. And, if you have something like this in place that's doing all of the things I just described, then a new website, new CRM should not be at the top of the list for you. Your tools are doing what they should in that regard. But if you're hearing some of the things we're talking about here, you're seeing the search experience of the website, you're noticing how many follow-up opportunities are here in this live feed, and you're thinking to yourself, that's something I don't have. Well, it's something you can have for $249 a month. So this isn't something that costs thousands and thousands of dollars to get. For less than the cost of an average car payment, you can have a website and mobile application, an online real estate source, so to speak, that your clients and leads will actually use, stay on, and not go elsewhere from. You have a follow-up system that's going to support you with automation, keep you in front of everybody, and constantly produce warm follow-up opportunities so that you never go a day without there being a chance to talk to someone, to move the ball forward, and to set up another deal for yourself. So, I know we have a little bit of time left, and, this is where maybe, Cody, I turn the mic back to you. And, if there's anything you'd like to add or things that I should be bringing up that I'm not, I would love to hear them. Or perhaps, if there's any questions in the group, I would love to answer them.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you so much, Mike. I mean, what we all need to be aware of is the client experience. And while technology will never replace realtors and real estate space in general, the agents that use technology will, because the technology is constantly changing to meet that client expectation. And the magic is always in the follow-up. I am not one who loves CRMs. I think that for the most part, CRMs are something that you have to constantly feed, and it doesn't do a whole lot back for you. This is different because the CRM feeds you. So you're plugging in your information, but it's also giving you what you need to know to be successful in that follow-up. And that's why this is different. Fidelity is just so great about going out and finding products, tools, and resources that we believe work well, and that's what we're able to put in front of you. So I thank you so much, Mike, because this is just a game changer in the CRM world. We've seen it work for our clients, and that's why we wanted to bring it to the table today.
Well, I really appreciate you having me on, and you're totally right. That has been most people's experiences with CRMs. When you say CRM, what people think is, oh, it's an address book on my computer that I can set reminders in to check in with folks. And this could be an address book for you if you want. It's got all those super basic pieces, but the point you made, Cody, that's the game changer. You know, with this CRM, it's not just the reminders and notes that you're putting in. The CRM is giving information back to you. It's telling you who's actually shopping, who's looking at buying or selling. So instead of just working off reminders, taking shots in the dark with your follow-up, you're spending your time talking to people who have a chance at converting. That's what this system is meant to do. Take all your lead sources and all your contacts and create a dynamic with them where you know who are the 5 to 10 people I should be reaching out to today. And if I reach out to those 5 to 10 people today, there's going to be an opportunity there.
Absolutely. We are right up at our 20 minutes. I don't want to keep anybody, but if you do have a few questions, feel free to add them to the chat. Maybe I'll ask one question as we wrap it up today. As far as the valuation inquiry, here in Idaho, we are a non-disclosure state. How does your valuation inquiry work here? I'm seeing that on your live feed. Is that just where they're tapping you to give them a valuation, or are they seeing a valuation somewhere?
They're seeing an evaluation somewhere, and it's going to be a high side estimate, a low side estimate, and an estimate right in the middle. And the way my clients leverage that is by using it as kind of a setup for a listing appointment rather than the end all be all number that someone should expect to list at. So if someone inquires for their home's value, typically what happens is this: they get a high side, a low side, and a middle ground estimate. This CRM sends out an auto text within a minute that says something like, hey, I saw you got a home value estimate on my website. I wanted to reach out, learn more about the property so I could refine that number for you a little bit and give you an actual listing recommendation. Now they have their foot in the door. Now they can set up that call. They can set up that appointment at the home to see the property and get into a more substantial listing sort of conversation. So that's how people use this. The estimate's often not going to be on the dollar to what the agent recommends, but it's a great conversation starter. And if we know those people are going to be looking for that somewhere, somehow, we might as well be the one proactively providing it to them. And that's what the system allows you to do.
Absolutely. And where does it pull that valuation data from?
We use a data aggregator, so something that pulls all the solds throughout the entire country and basically makes its estimate, makes its guesses on what it has in that data.
Okay, great. Well, thanks again, Mike. I encourage you all to reach out if you have any questions. I can certainly connect you with Mike for a one-on-one presentation where he can dive a little bit deeper into some of the visuals. Again, it's just a fantastic system. And without further ado, I invite you to next week's 20-minute webinar, and reach out if you have any questions. We'll get you to Mike.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Mike. Bye.
Bye.